yes, I will freely admit that there are problems with Studio Series, Gamer, whatever, Barricade. And compared to Bumblebee and Optimus Prime, he is the weakest of the three that we've gotten in that particular subline so far. That being said, knowing what I was getting into with this guy and also having a few ways to kind of mitigate some of his issues really helps. He's definitely not like a super amazing, awesome all-time figure like Kingdom Cyclonus or Legacy G-Axis or Legacy Tarn or, other classic figures that have stood the test of time. But for what he is, I think he's actually pretty enjoyable and he looks pretty good. So with all of that out of the way, here is Gamer Barricade. I'm just going to call him War for Cybertron Barricade. And this is, I think, accurate. I don't know, it's been a really long time since I played the games and I haven't bothered to look up any kind of official artwork. But this is the car and it looks pretty good. They definitely did a good job, in my mind at least, with the color separation. I don't know how accurate it is, as I said, but what is here looks good. I like how you've got gray along the outside and black going down the center. But then you've got these additional accents like purples and silvers, even a little bit of yellow. So it looks good. It's a good looking, nicely colored vehicle, nice and boxy. It has this kind of battering ram thing on the front, which is neat looking. The only thing that kind of stinks about this vehicle mode is the wheels. They're very plain. I feel like it would have been nice to bring some color in here. And of course they're doing that thing where you've got like the black clips on the front wheels and then gray clips on the back wheels, so it makes them stand out more, which I don't really like when that happens. But I feel like if they had brought maybe some silver into the rims or some of that purple, maybe even some of that yellow, it would help to make the car look less plain, because you get some nice detail looking at it from the side up here, but then down here it just looks so barren. But then looking at it from the top, it looks really nice and buried up here. So yeah, could have been handled better, but for what it is, I guess it's fine. I'm trying to figure out why this isn't sitting flush. Might just be as flush as it can get, I don't know. But then around the back, you got the big Batmobile booster thing, and this definitely could use a little bit of paint, maybe even like the taillights or something, but we're not going to be looking at it from here. It's kind of excessive how big that engine is, but it's fine. And yeah, overall, reasonably cool vehicle. The weapon actually can store in it pretty well. Unfortunately, unlike Bumblebee, there's no real way to store the weapon out of the field of vision, so you can't hide it in vehicle mode, but I think plugging it up here is fine. And without the weapon, it's still a pretty sleek, well, even sleeker looking vehicle. We'll look at this more when we get to robot mode. Yep, I like the contours. I like how it's mostly flat edges and sharp angles with just a little bit of curve in the front, right up along the hood section. And the rest of it, it's pretty much just like angular, almost polygonal in a way. Like classic polygonal, not like it's trying to look like a video game, just it's got like harsh jagged edges all over the place rather than smooth edges. Makes me think of like an old original PlayStation or possibly even Nintendo 64 style model. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say about the vehicle mode. I am planning to get the repro labels for this guy, so hopefully that will address some of the wheel stuff. I need to double check that set to see if it actually does anything for the wheels, but yeah. So we'll see how that works out when I get the set. But for now, there we have Barricade's vehicle mode, and we're going to bring in our size comparisons. There we've got Artfire and Rotor Storm and Burnout and Samus, and for a deluxe, Barricade's vehicle mode looks kind of huge. It's a little bit pancaked and spread out compared to Burnout, but it does look gigantic for a deluxe next to a more typical deluxe. So there is that. Get all of these out of the way. And I actually did take the time. You all should be proud of me. I took the time to transform Optimus and Bumblebee so you can see how the three of these all look together. And I still stand by the fact that this is actually a lot better than people seem to give him credit for. And Optimus is great, but yeah, a Barricade, as I said, weakest of the three. Don't think that makes him bad. Just, it's, you know, you've got decent compared to fantastic and actually really cool. So yeah, I think saying he's the weakest isn't necessarily a dig. But it is also interesting how these are both deluxes, and you can see just how much bigger Barricade is compared to Bumblebee, but engineering-wise, there's more going on with B. And then compared to Optimus, he's a little bit smaller, but not as small as you would think when putting him next to an actual Voyager. But again, more going on with Optimus. Barricade is relatively simple. Let's get these two out of the way. And just a couple more comparisons to make here. Since I have this now, we can also do a siege comparison. So here's Barricade with Barricade, and the reason I've got the siege mold is because personally I think the siege mold is better than the Earthrise mold for the Datsuns. So this isn't really a Datsun, obviously, but I think this mold is better. I like the sleeker design of the car, even if it is more Cybertronian. I'm getting the Reaper labels for this guy too, because yeah. I also removed the battle damage from the fronts, which I think helps. Unfortunately, I had a little mishap with some placement of the rubbing alcohol and caused a little bit of wear the paint on the front there, but I'm willing to chalk that up to reasonable battle damage versus the weird streaks. But anyway, yeah. There is Barricade with Barricade, and again, like, car mode is massive for a deluxe. And finally, because this is what you all been waiting for, here we have Barricade with the duck tank. Now, before we get to the transformation of Studio Series, this one Barricade, I do want to say really quick, if you like this video, even though it's a bit of a train wreck, or any of the other videos that I've done on the channel, and you want to give the channel a little bit of support, I do have a Patreon that has a single tier. It is $1 a month, and it gets you early access to new videos in addition to supporting the channel. But if you want to support the channel in other ways, aside from watching, liking, subscribing, that kind of thing, I do also have a link down in the description for the Discord server for Show Z, which is an overseas site that does a lot of third-party and KO Transformer sales. I've been using them for years, and they're pretty great. And if you use that link to join the Discord server, then that earns me a little bit of store credit that I could use to buy more stuff in the future that I can then make videos on. So yeah, that is also an option. So with all that out of the way, let us transform Barricade. I've only transformed this guy a couple of times, so this might be a little awkward, but we'll see how it goes. So first, going to take the back section and disconnect that. It kind of clips in here and here, so you just kind of want to pull it back and up, and it'll come undone, and just pull out like that. Next, want to unplug the arms, which tab in right in here, and there's also a little tab here that they sit over. So unplug all of that, and these will hinge up to get into their proper shoulder position. So hinge that up. Now, I want to rotate the bicep around 180 degrees. And this arm is a little tricky because of the way that the peg works. You can see it's like a peg with a bit of a flat side to it. Same deal here. And because of that, there's a little bit of a, if you try and twist this, it kind of twists down here before the actual bicep, and that's not great. So I find you want to kind of brace this to give that a twist, and then if you bend the elbow, then you can kind of more comfortably twist it around without worrying too much about warping that peg. I'm thinking after this I may just try and like thicken up, like severely thicken up the port there, because I really don't like the take the arm off gimmick, particularly on Barricade, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, with the arms repositioned, now you open this up and flip out the hand. And once you get the hand out, rotate that around 180 degrees and put it down in place. Same deal on this side because it's the same overall thing, same hand, well, same design for the arm, I should say. Turn that around, take that, close that up, and just gonna keep the arms up and out of the way. Now, I'm gonna take this whole section and pop that out and bring that down. I'm gonna take these bits here, the grill, fold that down and forward, make feet, rotate the waist 180 degrees, split the legs, then reorient the backpack, which should be there we go. So this kind of clips up, you want to push it, unclip it, I guess, from there, push it in, and then swing it around on this hinge, and this will plug into the peg on the back of the back. That will shore up the torso. Can be a little tricky to get lined up, but once it's in place, it's in place. It's just you really got to kind of push it to lock it in. And the arms do kind of get in the way. This guy has, as I said at the beginning of the video, he has his issues. But with all of that done, last thing to do is the leg thing, which is you unpeg these bits from the side, swing them up, and swing this around. And then this tab on this little armature will slot in there. And that kind of cleans up the leg a bit. So you've got this option, or you can leave it down like this. I kind of wish that you could swing it like, I mean, you can, but it doesn't lock in anywhere. But I kind of wish that you could do more with this. Because if you bring this up like this, it gets in the way too much, but I like having that color visible. This just seems kind of sloppy. But it is what it is. And there we have War for Cybertron Barricade in his robot mode, and as you can tell, he's got some problems. Now, before I get to all that, I will say I do actually like the aesthetic on this guy. He has some pretty severe design issues, both in terms of articulation and just straight up engineering, and like parts clashing and stability and articulation limitations due to everything. And as you can see, he wants to fall back, but aesthetically, this looks really cool, even with the saddlebags. I do think that he is a very neat looking figure. And it looks, from what I understand, pretty accurate to the game model. Definitely that chest is very Fall of Cybertron with the angular design and the kind of glowy bits for the purple, though I think if the purple were a little bit brighter or more vibrant, it would do a better job of making it look like it's glowing. The color separation here is okay, with the gray feet, light gray for the shins, and then you get to like the darker black for the thighs, the chest, the head, a little bit in the biceps, and then like the lighter gray for the arms, and then some darker gray for the midsection, biceps, and hands. So it does break up a bit. A bit. And I do think the boxy aesthetic and the angles that, you get like the angular look from the car kind of carried over to the robot mode. I think that is nice. But as you can see, yeah. And this is ridiculous. I don't know, like, I feel like there could have been room somehow. There just has to have been a way for them to either give him heels or just design this little catcher thing to come out at like instead of straight down, have it come out a little bit at an angle. So it's like so instead of just going like this, it's going like this. So it's more like a cowcatcher shape, because then these would stick out further and you would have something more akin to actual heels. Because if you look at him here, he just does not have that. And these bits don't come down any further. That's another thing. If these hinged slightly differently and could come down a bit further, they could at least act as heels, but they don't. I will go over how I work around that, but it is, yeah. But as I said, I think the aesthetic on this guy is cool, if a little bit overly boxy. Like, having the engine bit on the back is really neat, but unfortunately you've got all of this stuff on the back too. Like, if that could compact a little bit more, it'd be nice, because as it is, you could see it very easily gets in the way of the arms, and it just kind of bulks out his back a little bit too much. And again, the saddlebags I'm not super fond of. The arms are, for what they are, pretty adequate, though I'll go over other issues when we get to articulation. And yeah, that's, I think, pretty much all I can say on the aesthetics. I do think he looks good, and I do think he'll look even better with repro labels. It's just the way he was designed, it could have been better. I guess all I can say, I can echo that sentiment that a lot of people have said. Now, the head sculpt is really cool. I like the design of the head. It's pretty basic, but from what I understand and have seen, it is pretty spot on to the game model. And I like the design of the eyes. I know that there are, the repro label set has optional stickers to like make his eyes look a little bit more normal shaped, but I like having them kind of come down a little bit. With that, it's either an odd shape or like the eyes have like a secondary slit going down. I just think it's cool. It kind of stands out, and the yellow really pops with the black head and the gray face. So yeah, I do think the head sculpt is actually pretty cool. Now, it is on a ball joint, so you can look up a little bit and down a little bit. You don't really get any tilt, and you can rotate the head, but oh goodness, is it snug. I need to pop the backpack off so that I can get a proper grip on this thing. So yeah, the head does turn. It's just a bit of a beast to get going. It is very tight. I might want to try and go in there with some shock oil to loosen it up a little bit. And plug this back in. Because then we can talk about how it gets in the way of the arms. The arms are on this ball joint, but also a stalk, which allows them to shift down for transformation. So as you can see, the arms can go out a bit, but not very far. And they can rotate, but this backpack does kind of get in the way, so you have to bring the arms out if you want to rotate all the way around. You get a significantly less than 90-degree bend on the elbow, which is unfortunate. That's just the way the design works. If you twist the arm in a little bit, you can get a little bit more bend, but because of the way it transforms and all this stuff here, it's not going to bend all the way. You do get a bicep swivel that rotates around because, transformation. And the hands, they rotate because of the transformation, because they're on a ball joint. But the problem is, as you can see, this panel here gets in the way of the thumb, so you can't straighten the hand out, which it doesn't bother me that much, but I do think if this had been given a bit more time to design or possibly redesign, I don't really know the story behind the development of this figure, but I feel like if it had been refined a bit more, they could have figured something out for those hands. You get a waist rotation, which can go all the way around, but the saddlebags do get in the way, so you want to look out for those. For some reason, this one rotates a lot further forward than this one. I don't really know what's up with that. But anyway, waist rotation. You get hips that go forward. Well, they go forward to about 90, if you keep them straight. If you go out a bit, you can go much higher past 90. Going back, they go to about 90 before the things start clashing back here. Arms out of the way here. They only go out this far, and that's not because of the these bits. You can see even with those out of the way, they do not go out any further because there's no cut in the ball socket to allow for outward motion like that, so that kind of stinks. You do get a thigh swivel, which goes pretty freely even with this junk in the way. And then the knee can bend about that far. Okay, so yeah, the knee bends not to 90, and it's not because of junk in the way, it's just that it does not bend any further. It is cool how this armature can actually bend with the knee, so that's an interesting kind of design point, but I feel like kind of this wasn't necessary in the first place, but whatever. And then the feet can go forward and back. They cannot, you don't get any ankle tilt. So yeah, articulation is a teensy bit, or not teensy bit, a significant amount kind of hampered due to his design and construction. But really, this is the main disappointment. So leave him down there real quick, take a look at the gun. And here is the gun that he comes with, and it's from the game, and it looks like this. Reminds me a little bit of the pulse rifle from Aliens, actually. Just the shape. And this, of course, because it's Fall of Cybertron Studio Series, can be attached to the arm. You can just peg it in, pop the arm off, peg it in, and this looks okay, but it does look a little bit small compared to the chunky boxiness of the rest of the figure. And also, I just don't like this gimmick. But this also sucks because, kind of like with Bumblebee, you can't store the arm anywhere. Like, you'd think there's this tab back here and this tab here. You'd think it could store there, but it really doesn't fit. Like, it doesn't want to go in. The tab is a little too big, or this is a little too small. And that is irritating. There's no reason for that. This could have easily been big enough to fit in there, and they could have designed these bits so that, like, when they swing around and tab into the legs, it all fits together. Like, there's no reason for it. But it is what it is. What you can do, though, is you could take the gun and tab that back there as weapon storage, and because of the lack of paint back here, it blends in, so that's kind of nice in its own way. But yeah, that's the accessory, and it really bums me out, that gimmick, because as with the other figures, he can't actually hold the gun. There's this square peg that fits in the top of the vehicle, and that will not fit in the robot mode hand. So, yeah. It just sucks. I really wish they had done things a little differently. Now, the stability. As you can see, this is a pretty significant problem with this figure. That said, it's actually not that hard to work around. If you angle the hips back a bit and angle the ankles forward a bit, he actually balances just fine. You know, it does require a little bit of fiddling, but as long as you angle the feet and don't just straighten them out, he'll stand no problem. To the point where I kind of feel like maybe it would have been better if they had these things kind of stop before straightening out completely. I wonder if maybe if it's meant for you to, like, jam these behind the little catcher thing. No, that pushes them too far forwards, and then he wants to fall forward. Okay. So yeah, it's could have been designed better, but there are ways to work around it, as I said. And I do think, despite his definite flaws, his definite, obvious, and let's be real, myriad flaws, I do think this is a cool figure for what he is. This is the kind of thing where I would have been disappointed with him if I had gotten him initially. Just, sight unseen, just, oh, Barricade, yes, I want to get that. But having a better idea of what to expect going into it, I actually like him a lot because his issues did not take me by surprise and did not really affect my enjoyment at all because I knew to expect them and kind of had ideas on how to deal with them, such as with balancing. So yeah, let's get Barricade over there for the last little bit of size comparisons. Can bring in Artfire and Rotor Storm. Once again, you can see that he's pretty bulky for a modern deluxe. He is a little bit bigger than Burnout, not as tall as Rotor Storm, but has a lot of visible mass to him. I can't say he's actually got more mass because he feels about the same weight as Burnout, but he's chunky, he's big, he's got body to him. So he's not a small deluxe. I feel like I'm just retreading the same talking points over and over again, but I don't know. It's never scripted, so now let's bring in the other War for Cybertron boys. There's Optimus and Bumblebee. Actually, here we'll do Optimus and Bumblebee like, whoa. Yeah, that's the downside with the balancing him on his feet like that. I need to tighten that ankle joint so that it doesn't rock as freely. But there you can see he kind of sits. I mean, he does sit pretty much between Bumblebee and Prime in terms of size and bulk. He's the same class as Bumblebee, but he's more beefy like Prime. Not as beefy, just more beefy. I think they all look really good together, though it is interesting looking at them all lined up like this. Barricade does still kind of stand out by virtue of the fact that he looks like he was the one who had the smallest development budget, let's say. That's pure speculation on my part. I do not know the process behind any of this. It's just, given the size and simplicity and very obvious oversights and limitations with Barricade compared to the other two from the same wave, it does feel like Barricade got shortchanged somewhere in the design process for one reason or another. I don't know why, I don't know even if that's true, but it just kind of gives that impression. Which I think in a way actually makes him impressive, because he turned out, all things considered, pretty okay if he was up against that kind of a challenge. And lastly, here we've got Barricade and Barricade again, and once again, it's like two deluxe Barricades, very different aesthetics, very different sizes, but I think they're both cool in their own ways for what they do. Objectively, I will say this is the better toy. I still don't think he's terrible, but he could have been so much better, and it's kind of a shame because I don't think we've gotten a Fall of Cybertron Barricade before. There are also a lot of other Fall of Cybertron designs that we haven't gotten yet that I'm hoping we get. I really hope the Studio Series Fall of Cybertron figures do well, because I really want a Fall of Cybertron Warpath or War for Cybertron. I've been saying Fall of Cybertron. This is War for Cybertron. They're interchangeable in my brain. You all knew what I meant. But yeah, I really wish we get a War for Cybertron Warpath, because that design is really cool. And we haven't gotten one from anyone, so hopefully we will someday. But anyway, here he is with the duck tank. And that does it for Studio Series War for Cybertron Barricade. And I've already reiterated multiple times, but I will reiterate again that this figure is definitely the weakest compared to Bumblebee and Prime in terms of its construction and design, and in some ways its aesthetics. because it just feels like they pushed the paint budget and the sculpting and design a little bit further with the other two. But with that said, even with his limitations, even with his cluttered aesthetic and kind of annoying bulk and really unfortunately limited articulation, and even more unfortunate heel problem, I still think he's neat for what he is. His transformation is much simpler than the other two, but it gets the job done. His vehicle mode looks great from most angles. The robot mode actually does look good. It's just really boxy and cluttered. So yeah, I don't know, maybe this will prompt some third parties to branch out into more War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron stuff, or maybe Planet X will be like, hey, we need to do more rather than doing a bunch of reissues and repaints of figures that we've already released. Who knows? But point is, I don't regret my purchase because I knew what I was getting into, but I also completely understand why people might look at this guy and think, no, I'm going to pass. But that is going to do it for Barricade. That is what I think. What do you all think of this guy? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and I don't know, so I don't sound like a hypocrite, the reason I don't mind having Barricade figures, even though he turns into a cop car, is because he's a bad guy. I think it's fitting.